Hey everybody, this is me, Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. It's been a while since I've made a video. It's not because I haven't been making content, so mainly it's just because my day job is basically these days is creating a lot of technical content for Dremio, particularly writing content on data lakehouses. So if you want to read some of the content that I've been writing over there, you can always head over to dremio.com/subsurface and you can find a lot of the cool articles I've been writing. I've been doing a lot of speaking at meetups and things like that. So I've been kind of busy lately, but I'm still creating content. I have been updating the podcast. So again, there's the Web Dev 101 podcast and the Data Nation podcast. I did also just really start two new podcasts, Finance and Economics for Noobs and Living Better, where I'm talking more about like my recent weight loss journey. So for those of you wondering where I've been and what I've been doing, those are the things to go check out. But I did want to do something today. I do plan on like making some more tutorials sooner than later, so you'll probably start seeing more output on the JavaScript side from me very soon, maybe on the Rust side, because I've been doing a lot of Rust work. I will be doing actually a webinar for LogRocket on Rust coming up in a couple weeks, so check that out. Let's see if I can actually find the link for that. Rust webinar LogRocket. Alex Merced, taking advantage of the Googles. Okay, here we go. Okay, so basically here is the webinar. So do sign up for it. It should be a fun webinar where I'm going to talk about like what makes Rust special relative when you think about like C and Python and what makes it different than your typical high-level language and your typical low-level language. Why is Rust so unique? So check that out. And yeah, so now to our regularly scheduled programming where I just wanted to kind of browse the TC39 proposals. So if you're not familiar with like basically ECMA, so it's like the European Computer Manufacturers Association, they're the ones who own essentially JavaScript. It's really called ECMAScript, and TC39 is the committee that kind of determines sort of what gets added to the specification of JavaScript. Because again, the ECMAScript is really just a specification, and then each JavaScript engine has to then implement that specification. So that's like SpiderMonkey, V8, and I always forget that the one done by Apple, which is being used for Bun. Um, but basic bottom line is like TC39. We're like this is what JavaScript is, and then it's got to be implemented into all these different tools. Um, so bottom line is when you take a look over here, you can see like all these proposals that are working through the TC39 committee right here on GitHub. Okay, so right here you can kind of see like what the proposal is, and you can kind of see its status. So let's take a look at stage 1 proposals. And again, stage 1 proposals represent problems that the committee is interested in spending more time exploring the solutions to. Okay, so it means that they're not final yet, like they're not about to become a thing yet, but they're on the way to becoming a thing. And as you can see, like these presentations go back all the way to like 2017, 2016. So it takes time. Like every time something new happens in JavaScript, it wasn't like they just thought about that yesterday. It takes time for these things to kind of come into play. So let's see if we read any more. That's kind of interesting. So like export v from mod statements. Okay. So let's take a look at this one. Usually you have code snippets that kind of make it clear what it is. But it just looks like just more robust, like importing and exporting. So so basically kind of like how you can import like specific things from an object, looks like you can export specific things from an object. That's interesting. Um, okay, so basically making a more robust export. Adding native observables, that's cool. Okay, observables are a nice way to kind of like say, hey, when X updates, like something like state updates, observables are like what a lot of different of these frameworks use. Like React, I don't think necessarily uses observables for state, but a lot of like frameworks like Angular and whatnot, they'll use observables very heavily, and that's how they create that reactivity in their apps. Um, so that's cool. Math extensions looks like they want to add more math functions. Let's see here what they're looking to add. 2 degrees, 2 radians. Yeah, so it's just adding common math functions to that. Of and from on collection constructors. This sounds interesting. Let's see here. It's currently stage 1 of the TC39 process. Motivation. Well, I want to see what the spec is. Let's take a look at the spec. Okay, set and map of and from. Okay, map of. So let's see here. When the of method is called with any number of arguments, the following steps are taken. Items B list arguments pass this function. Set of. Back. Oh, operation. Okay, looks like it's a little more specific to maps, so we'll move on. But it looks like the idea is that you can, be basically create a collection from something else. So it's like create this from that, or create it with this of this. So that's gonna be cool. Generator arrow functions. I know what generator functions are. I know what arrow functions are. You can't generally create generators from arrow functions. So this tells me that, hey, can you make generators from arrow functions? Let's see how this would look like syntactically. Okay, that's pretty much what I expected. Just an asterisk somewhere. Um, got it. Okay, so it's essentially just the same thing as like just make your normal making a generated function, except you're just putting an asterisk somewhere in an arrow syntax. That's cool. Promise.try. Comment. Oh, no code snippet. Okay, well, I'm not going to read through that whole thing right now because I don't want to bore you guys too much. I'm trying to see if there's any other really cool ones that just kind of jump out at me. Pattern matching, yes. Okay, if you haven't used pattern matching in something like Rust or Python or Camel, it's really cool. It's one of the features that JavaScript doesn't have that I really wish it did, because it's a really neat feature. Okay, let's see if they have any really good examples. But the idea is like you would say, hey, there's this thing that I'm trying to match against, and then you would create kind of like a switch where there's like cases, but except like the difference with a switch statement is a switch is just like, does it equal this value? So like, is it this value? Is it this value? Is it this value? Here you're more comparing it against different patterns. So instead of saying like, hey, does this equal this value? You're saying, is this of this type of value? Like, is it a number? Or okay, hey, is this an array of a number? So you can actually specify like not only, hey, is it an array, but is it an array of a number and a boolean? And if it matches that, then do this. So basically, based on like the structure of the thing you're matching against, you can then decide what to do, which allows you for all sorts of really kind of cool possibilities. So this is kind of like how they plan on doing it. So yeah, they would use a match keyword. So say like match when, and then basically you'd pass it on like that. That's kind of like what the proposal says. Overall, I'm all for pattern matching. Um, let's see here, freezing prototypes, an emitter. I mean, that's what's this? Like in general, when I think of an emitter, I think of like events and emitting an event to trigger something. But generally, there are like, well, technically there's a different implementation of events in the browser and in Node. I'm not sure if it's, so I'm assuming it's not standard in JavaScript. So this is creating like a standard event emitter construct. So it's kind of like C constant equals emitter. Okay, but yeah, it just seems like they're just creating some sort of like event emitter. Which just means like, you have methods like on, which means like whenever the event is emitted, run this function. In the same way, it's like essentially how like events work in the browser when you do like an on-click event and things like that. UUID, yeah, that'd be nice because right now I don't think like there's just no built-in way to make UUIDs like there are in most other languages. So that would be kind of nice. UUIDs are just creating like a unique number, so that way you're never using like the same number twice. Usually what it does is just it's like generated based on things like the timestamp and whatnot. But the idea it has a way of just making sure that's it's a unique number. Array filtering, async. Yeah, a lot of really cool stuff. I remember this list has expanded a bit since the last time I looked at this. Okay, let's go back to the main thing. Now, but again, that's stage 1, which just means it's years out. So we go to stage 3. Okay, these are proposals that are kind of really kind of on the way to becoming a thing. So JSON modules, that'll be cool. So you can actually, like, you could do that with Node, but it's not necessarily like a JavaScript thing to be able to just like import a JSON file and be able to use that data. The temporal object is basically just something that's going to be an easier way of using dates in the current native JavaScript date object. Decorators will be another thing that I've been wanting them to add for a long time. It's in TypeScript. You can do it in TypeScript, but for some reason it just won't add it to the JavaScript spec. It would be cool because it's a really useful feature, a really useful way of constructing like frameworks that create ways of adding functionality to classes and functions by just saying adding a little decorator right above it. Duplicate named catcher groups. Let's take a look here. Function sent, throw, new set, iterator helpers. Record and tuple would be nice. These are just basically immutable constructs. So like a tuple is basically kind of like an immutable array. A record is more like an immutable object. They're because they are immutable. There's certain things you can do to optimize them under the hood. So basically, when you know you're working with the immutable things, you can actually have a faster program because you can use like these structures instead, which will have again certain benefits to their underlying like data structures. Because you're like, why can't I just use an array and just not update it or whatnot? It's just because there's like under the hood optimizations and things you can assume when things are just immutable, when things are contractually immutable. But yeah. So bottom line is, whenever you want to see like what's going on in the JavaScript world, this is kind of where you go look. And it's kind of fun to go look, to kind of dream of the JavaScript that will be. But that's all I wanted to kind of talk about today because I haven't been a while. It's been a while since I made a video, but I do have again over 1,200 videos on YouTube. So whatever you want to learn, you can go learn. Want to go learn React, Svelte, React? Just go look up my video on that topic. But otherwise, I'll see you all later. Have a great day and enjoy.